Hello, and welcome to today's webinar, The Ultimate Upgrade Showdown, CNC Enterprise One Tools and Application Release Upgrades. My name is Alana Johnson, and I am the Marketing and Administrative Assistant for ISP3. I'm joined today by Michelle Billy, a CNC Technical Specialist at ISP3, who will be discussing high-level planning, tips, and tricks related to these two upgrade types. Thank you for joining us today, Michelle.
Thank you for having me.
Before we begin, I just wanted to go over a couple of things. First of all, you are all muted, so if you have any questions or comments, please submit at any time via the GoToWebinar panel, which is located on the right side of your screen. We will be answering questions throughout the presentation, so if something comes to mind, please send it along. We are recording today's session, and that link will be made available so you can watch the webinar again at your convenience or share with your colleagues. And finally, when you exit out of the webinar today, we would really appreciate it if you could please take a moment and answer our post-webinar survey on today's topic. Your feedback helps us for our future webinars and making sure that we're providing you with the most relevant content. So once again, thank you for joining us. And Michelle, thank you for presenting and sharing your expertise.
Perfect. Thank you, Alana. Thank you very much for the introduction. Yes, thanks for taking the time out, everyone here. And I know everyone has busy schedules, so I wanted to introduce myself and good morning, afternoon, and buenas tardes to those in Chile I know that are joining us. So hello. So I've been with ISP3 for over 18 years and been doing CNC. And for those that don't know what CNC means, it's a configurable network computing. So it's basically JD Edwards allows you to configure your system many different ways. There's so many different options. So that's what it is. So setup, configuration, installs, upgrades, that type of stuff I've been doing for many years, and even doing that CNC for over 22 years. I have a lot of gray hairs that I cover up. So the very first upgrade I did was with base, the first release of One World, which was B733, and upgraded to B7331. So we've come a long way. How should I put this? It was not very elegant. I think that's maybe a nice way of saying it. Nothing worked. So it was very painful. But since then, there's been many upgrades over the years that I've been involved in the lead on, and we're now at the point where it's very sophisticated. The upgrade weekend is not what it used to be. There's been many changes, so it's an exciting time that we live in. And yeah, so hopefully the purpose of this webinar is basically to just go over what a tools upgrade is versus a application upgrade, and provide some insight as to what those processes look like. So today's agenda, we're going to look at the approach. There's different reasons why you upgrade and what you choose. So we're going to review that. We're going to look at an application scenario and the process flow for that, a full application release. And as well a tools release, the differences between that and the process flow for that. We're going to review best practices and then common pain points to avoid during an upgrade. And there's many of those. So we're just touching on a few major ones that we know could make or break a successful project. So the first thing to review is just what are the differences between a tools upgrade versus a full application upgrade. And the scenario I always go back to is a car. So a tools upgrade is the engine of the car. So it's an additional module features perhaps in the general look and feel. So like kind of like the paint of the car, because that tools allows you, when you submit a report to run on the server, that's the tools. Interactive applications, the buttons that you click, the OK, select, all those little buttons at the top, and the hyper exit, that's all the tools that is doing that. Scheduler server, package build processes. So all those kernels that allow you to process within JDE, that's all coming from the tools. And as well, the navigation, the Solution Explorer menus, just navigating through imports, exports, E1 pages, all of that kind of stuff. So you can see that it's the critical piece to your system. And then the full application release upgrade, that is the entire car. So pretty much everything. And in the case of an application upgrade, you start from the bare bones of it, as it were. And we highly recommend new servers. So you'd start with that, and you'd even start with the OS level. You may even do every single nook and cranny of your system, upgrade every piece of it, right from the OS straight through to JDKs and all the little bells and whistles that go with JD Edwards. So you can see that there's a little bit of a difference there, but at the same time, the question that everybody has is a tools release really that big of a deal to upgrade versus it's not the same as an application upgrade, is it? Like, it's not as bad. So that's kind of what the point of this webinar is to drill that into or to provide insight into that, to see that there is a big impact with the tools release depending on where you're going from. So we'll discuss that. So there's many different reasons why a company will decide to upgrade. So for full application release, usually they're coming from World or an old release of One World, and they need to get up to the 9.0 series. You may want to move to the cloud. We had a presentation not that long ago, less than a month ago, on moving to the cloud. We've done that a few times here as well. Clients are looking to that because it's a cost-effective way to run their JD Edwards application. Maybe a platform change. You're on Windows, you want to go to Linux, or Linux, you want to go to Windows, whatever you decide. That's usually something, and it just doesn't make sense to do a platform change and not change anything else because you have to test. So why not go for it with a new application as well? A new server, same thing. So, and also driving forces too could be the WebLogic release. It's not supported anymore. There's critical fixes that are coming down. It's causing issues. You're always hitting a wall with your WebLogic release. So you think, what the heck, let's just upgrade everything if we have to do this. DB, OS requirements, same thing. Oracle support, how many times do we have that where you phone, put in an SR, and the very first thing that is said is, you're on a very old tools, we recommend you. So kind of delayed. It doesn't mean that Oracle doesn't support you because you're on an older tools, but it kind of puts a damper on the issue, and you're always going back to that old tools, and it's always underlying, could be the reason why this is not working versus another client that it works at. So that makes you want to do that. The highest level of tools supported for 9.0, and that's why a lot of 9.0 clients are doing a full application releases. The tools that supported only to is 9.2.2. You can't go to 9.2.3. So that forces people to say, hey, let's go for it. A tools release upgrade, some of the reasons. I put this at the bottom. I'm going to say it first because it's always a huge one, is browser support. So, a lot of people have automatic updates to IE or whatever, and it causes problems. So they want to be able to be on top of the tools release, and that drives moving tools. So if you have HR payroll, Vertex is usually, they're highly integrated, obviously, with the tool set. So that's a driving force to upgrade your tools. Additional requirements, the power users or the team wants to go with the orchestrator, AIS, composite pages, maybe you want UX1. all of that is a tools requirement level that you may not be on. And same thing, Oracle supports, same scenario with the tool set versus the application release, etc. Additional modules. A lot of times the clients will, the app team will be trying to do an additional module, but they'll keep hitting a wall. Maybe they need AIS with ADF and they need a higher tool set to be able to implement what they want in that module. So that forces them to. And you're already on release 9.2, so you just want to keep current. So that's a reason why you do that. So a typical application upgrade scenario, this is, in this example, I've used moving from 9.1 to 9.2, but this could be 9.0 obviously, or this could be world, this could be moving from anything. But throughout this presentation, I'm using that as an example moving forward. And what you typically have is you have your 9.1 environment, we have your production running, your DVPY for 9.1. It is ISP3's recommendation to always get new servers for the upgrade environment. It's just, you know, yes, it's multi-foundation. Yes, technically, years ago, we did do an upgrade right on the servers of, you know, if you have DV and PY, separate servers for DV and PY, you say, well, we have these servers, let's just upgrade on them. And, you know, years ago we would do that, but it just doesn't make sense. It's kind of like the analogy of the car. Again, yes, you could drive your car at night with no lights, but do you want to? Probably not, because there's risk involved. So that's the same with, you know, using your existing servers when you're upgrading. There's a risk that's there. Whereas if you have new servers, you're eliminating that risk completely and segregating that 9.2 environment completely away from that. So, you know, there's several times when you need to restart the servers and you know, have control. You want that control, and that's what it gives you. So saying that, in this scenario, you have your new 9.2 servers, and all you need for the upgrade portion is to bring over your the database side of your shared data sources, and then obviously the environment that you're going to be upgrading, their first upgrade environment that you're going to bring. So you'd bring those over to the 9.2 side, and at that point then you just cut that tie and you're free to go crazy on the 9.2 side, which is exactly what the CNC people want, free to go crazy. So I think this is typical. I can't even think of any other clients that we have been upgrading that do not purchase new servers at this point in time with everything going on, because there's so much change. And then with this environment too, you start from scratch. You put every bell and whistle, everything current that is a tried, tested, and true current version of everything. You apply to the new servers, and then you do the upgrade on here. So that's a typical high-level look at an application upgrade scenario. So now going into the database side and what happens on the database during that upgrade scenario, this slide kind of shows it very simplistic here. But what you would do though is when you choose which environment you're going to be upgrading, which is always starts with DV. So when you're bringing that DV environment over to the 9.2 side, you basically want that DV environment, your current production stuff. So you want everything that those users see in production in that DV 9.10 environment. So whether you do the refresh from production into the DV 9.10 and bring it over, or however you do it, you basically want the latest and greatest that you currently have when you bring it over to the 9.2 side, so that you're not missing anything. And there's no worry about that something's different in PD versus PY or DV. So once you bring that over, the very first thing that happens during that first upgrade environment is it merges the shared data sources. So from this, I've got this little database down here, or these are the schemas in Oracle that are being used. So these are this is what we pulled from the 9.1 side. So they're temporary. They're just here. And then that upgrade process, the shared data source merge, actually pulls from here, SY910, DD, OL, a little bit of SBM, but not much. And it pulls what it needs to and merges it into the 9.2 side. So that first initial task process that the upgrade runs, it will merge your user profiles, your security, your OL records for your custom code, all those things that you need on the 9.2 side, and you don't want to do again, obviously. You don't want to create new user passwords and users and roles and all that kind of stuff. So that process does that. The second thing that happens is it does an in-place upgrade of control table merges and business data. So right here, if you're doing the updating the DV environment, it will do an in-place upgrade of test CTL, test ETA. So you're running your table conversions, your solution explorer merge. So it merges from the planner and inserts all the new stuff for 9.2 into your DV into your DV environment there for test CTL. UDC codes, it updates your UDC codes with the new 9.2 stuff, etc. Then the third thing it does is your spec merge. So you have complete control over what's going on here. So all your custom objects from 55 to 59, you actually set before in Object Librarian to say, hey, bring these over. So that means you set them to C and 1, which will merge them, and it will go out. That process, that spec merge process, goes and looks at the OL and says, what do I have to merge here? What do I have? And it will run that merge. It will merge your interactive versions that you have created as a client, or their custom ones. And it will merge your batch versions for even if it's base. So if you have a base R01401 address book report, but you have a bunch of versions under that, it will merge those versions for you, obviously. And then it does the custom code. So if you've got an R55 401, it will merge that if you have it set in Object Librarian to CM1. So that's what happens at the database level when you do an upgrade. So at that point, once that upgrade process is finished, these temporary databases are not being used. It's done what it needed to do, it's happy. And that process does not happen again unless you decide that you want it to. The system flags it and says, I've done this initial task of merging everything from the 9.1 to 9.2, and it stops. And so then you have control. You don't run the risk of overwriting your security table again or anything like that when you do another environment upgrade. So then from there, you would take you've now got a perfect little DV920 environment that's upgraded, and you'd make a cookie cutter environment out of that. So you do a mirror image of your DV920 and create your PY920. And then production, that's another story, because you need your live data on go live weekend. So this one's put together a little bit differently, because you end up taking your PY920, your central libraries, and copying it to PD, and then doing an in-place upgrade of your DTA and CTL, your business data and control tables come go live weekend. So in the end, everything that is dark blue ends up being your what your database looks like at the JD side. Obviously, this is just it's a generic base environments. Every client is different. You may have custom environments, several different schemas that you have that make up a custom environment. You may have different BI databases or schemas that you have as well, but this is just the base, the look at the base stuff. Okay. Are there any questions on the last couple of slides, Lana, from anybody?
So no questions in yet, but if you do have questions, please remember that you can just enter them on the right-hand side. There's the GoToWebinar panel. So I think we're good to carry on with the tools.
Perfect. Okay, thank you very much.
No problem.
Actually, not really the tools yet, but we'll keep going. No problem. So now we have the, I just want to quickly go over the process flow. So these are the milestones. So hitting high level, these are the tasks that you would do for an application release, and then we'll go over the tool side too, so that you can kind of see the difference. But pre-upgrade task number 1, that is a critical process. If you do not prepare properly, you're going to have a really bad upgrade. I've seen it before too, where even at the database level, the refresh process went bad and nobody knew it. And then you do the full upgrade and all of a sudden you have to do it all again, because that pre-upgrade task, that process of copying, doing that refresh was faulty and it causes issues. So the more you plan at the very beginning, the more success you're going to have throughout that upgrade process and the end result. The next step would be to install fresh from on the 9.2 server. So you install the platform pack for 9.2 on everything, get everything on there. And then it's an install of Pristine. You don't upgrade Pristine, you install Pristine. That's always the way, because you want the base JD Edwards environment out of the box with demo data. Then you would go through and upgrade your environment from DV 9.10 in this case, and we're going with that release, to 9.2. Then you hit it hard with everything that's out there. Applying ASUs, application software updates, ESUs, electronic software updates, ASIs, application special instructions. That goes with the tool set, which is run through Change Assistant, and manual special instructions. And you just hit it with every single thing that is out there at that day, at that time, so that you can make sure that when you release it to the team, they don't say, well, have you installed this ESU? Because this isn't working. And then, oh yeah, so you just hit it hard. Then after you've got that DV environment where you want it, you create a mirror image. Now, I have here, you release it to the development team to start retrofits. You technically could wait and say, well, let's just wait to create our PY environment until the retrofits are done, and then we'll release PY. Do you want to do that? No, because your project will be delayed significantly. The other reason why you kind of wouldn't want to do that is because you may have customizations, the retrofits that you did in the past, that maybe you don't need anymore. So a lot of times what teams do, well, they'll go into PY and test and create and unit test on that retrofit and say, you know what, we don't need that anymore. We did a retrofit years ago and it was to fix a bug as a workaround, and let's scrap it. That's a waste of time. So that technically happens a lot, actually. So it's a good way of doing that. So they would go in and unit test, and then as that's happening, the promotions of those retrofits are happening. So they get moved up, and then you communicate to the team to test this. You activate your integration points as well to make sure that PY is, it simulates what you're going to have in production in the future in a very controlled environment. And then the apps teams go through their integration testing. They sign off PY and say, yep, we're good. Everything is tested. Everything's good after all the issues have been fixed. And then you create your PD environment based on PY920, so the copy of central objects. You pull your business data and perhaps control tables from your current PY, and you do an in-place upgrade. And then you've cut over, this is on the cutover weekend, you do an in-place upgrade for PD. And then you apply your ESUs, ASIs, manual ASIs, just to business data and control tables so that they're hit. And you skip the spec merge. So your objects are exactly the same from PY to PD, but you're making sure that those business data and control tables are updated so that the test results are the same that you had in PY. And then you go live. That's the exciting time. And then after that, you go to the bar. Okay, and so we'll move on to the tools release, different scenario. And this is quite a bit different because it's not hit as hard, obviously, at the application level. So that's why I have a different diagram here, just to illustrate the differences here. But again, the recommendation is to have new servers at this level. So at the enterprise level and the web level, you really want those to be new. Why? Because along with the tools release upgrade, you're most likely going to want to upgrade your WebLogic or WebSphere if you're using WebSphere. Most of WebLogic, but you're going to want to do that. There's JDK changes that you're going to want to make sure, because we all know, if you've been in CNC for a while, you know that challenge that we have with JDK versions and the tool set as well. So that needs to be updated. So having them separate to be able to test and hit hard is always a nice thing and a benefit. So you apply the tools to DV and PY servers. So the deployment servers hit. So you have to either set up snapshot through JD Edwards, which I'm not a crazy fan of, but a manual change out too is usually what I do, where you write a script to just change out the folders and the INI on the deployment server level so that you can switch back and forth, because you still need your deployment server.
Okay, thank you guys very much. I think Michelle might be having some difficulty there with her microphone.
Alana, are you there?
Oh, there we go. Hi, Michelle.
There's a technical difficulty here.
Yes, we can hear you now. I just wanted to make sure. I think it might have conked out there for a second.
So sorry about that, everyone. Hope I didn't lose everyone's attention there. Don't know what happened, but anyway, we'll continue on here. So updating the tool set on the DV and PY servers, on the new ones as well. And then the team goes in and actually tests the tools, and that would be on the new servers that they would be doing that. And then you apply it to the PD servers and go live. So once that process is finished, then you remove the multi-foundation. So remember, at the deployment server level, you've set up multi-foundation because that's what's running under the new tool set, is under a different port. You would then take it apart, and so that you would end up with a full environment that runs under the same port as usual under the new tool set. So that's kind of what a tools release upgrade scenario looks like. So the process flow for the tools upgrade is a little bit different. It's a little less, but I want to emphasize the importance of understanding the tool set, because where you're coming from and where you're going to, the impact may be small or great. So for instance, if you're moving from 898 to 923, is there an impact? Absolutely. Are you going to have ESUs? Absolutely. You're going to have ESUs no matter what you do if you do a tools upgrade, because there's ESUs that go along with the tool set, and there's also performance ESUs that you definitely want to apply as well. because that means success for a tools upgrade. You could get away with having a few ESUs here and there with the mandatory ones, but do you want to do that? Chances are high you're going to end up applying many ESUs after the tools has gone live, and it's just more, it's recommended that you just attack it at the beginning versus the end. So that also means that you have to plan for that. So the pre-upgrade task that goes along with it is planning what ESUs you're going to apply and what impact they're going to have on your system, and preparing the application team for what is coming down, because they need to have those scripts ready to test and to be able to validate that everything is working as expected. So then you would install the ESUs required for tools and additional. You may have new servers. Like we said, that's a highly recommended suggestion that you have new servers. So you do the install of that. Server manager, it goes along with the tool set. So you always update the server manager. You can have server manager console and the agents higher than the tool set, but you always usually keep them consistent with what your highest level tool set in your environment is. And then you update your DVPY servers, that's your web enterprise side, and then apply any additional ESUs, builds, deploy them out, release it to the team for their critical business processing, do your PY sign off and your PD prep. So the PD prep is a lot simpler, obviously, for a tools upgrade versus an application upgrade, because you're not dealing with the whole pulling of the database, of the tests, the business data, control tables onto new servers. You're not dealing with that level of detail. You're just updating the actual path codes and system directories, and then applying your ESUs. So that's what a tools release process flow looks like, versus the application level. So Lana, are there any questions at this point for any of this?
Alrighty, so let me just check here. Doesn't look like right now. For those who are attending, if you do have any questions from that slide where we had the technical difficulties, please just make sure you put it in the panel there, and I can always pass it along to Michelle. But I think, Michelle, we're good to carry on.
Perfect. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So for best practices, we found that scheduling for upgrades and the tools release, the question we had actually when people were registering was, what's the frequency? What's the best timeline to upgrade your tool set and application? What is a typical client timeline? And that's a loaded question, because for CNC on the technical side, our job is to provide service and stability, and it's to provide service. So if we're constantly pushing updates, we're constantly pushing tools releases to the team and impacting their life greatly, which it does, we're not going to be their best friend. Not that we want to be their best friend, but we want to be a service industry for that, and that's not being that way. That being said, we do have clients that every 6 months they have it set to do an upgrade of the tools release and do fix current ESUs. Is that the best scenario? Absolutely. It's fantastic. They update all of their servers, they do new servers every time. We do the tool set, we upgrade any web logic or anything like that. Their power users are so in tune with testing, and their test scripts are so nailed down that it's not a big deal every 6 months when they get that. When they know it, they plan for it, and it's like a well-oiled machine. But they've been doing that for years. And then every couple of years, they've done an application release upgrade which then in turn makes it easy too, because the users are so used to updates and upgrades that it's very easy for them to fit it into their schedule. So that's best case scenario, but realistically, you just don't want to get so far behind that any cool stuff that comes up that will help your business and will save time for the users to process, like you want to go with Orchestrator or automate some process that is taking days for users to do. You don't want to be so far behind that it's a major overhaul to get what you need. So, keeping on 898s, that's a very difficult process, because you're not going to get all the things that you want. So again, it's like asking how long is a piece of string. It just depends on your environment and what your users are. But typically every year, it would be fantastic if you move up with your tool set. That's usually what is a good timeline. CNC task list. Have a massive CNC task list with every single detail from DV start to PD go live. And in there, have everything that is even outside of the CNC JD Edwards world. So all your integration points, all your the ops side, like the backups, the schedule for backups, your anything that impacts your upgrade process, put it in there, because it reminds you of what needs to be done. And sometimes you forget things. So it's helpful. Dedicate a CNC resource. The way ISP3 works is we actually let the client drive, because in the end, we want that client to know their system inside and out and be able to support their environment. So have that dedicated resource, because in the end, you end up saving a lot of time and agony if that on-site CNC resource is doing the work. Refresh planning. So your data set, what you bring over to upgrade to the 9.2 side, make sure you have that on the 9.1 side in the PY environment. So when a user goes in and tests in PY 9.2.0, for instance, and they say, this isn't right, this doesn't look right, what was it in 9.1? How did it behave in 9.1? They could go over to the 9.1 side in the PY environment in 9.1 and do the exact same process over there and get the results. Maybe they are the same. It saves a lot of time if you have both of those environments with the same data set. Customizations. I've touched on this before. Know if there's something, know why you did customizations in the first place and decide, do I want to proceed with them? Should we test it first? Should we keep going? Those are things that you need to be aware of. And be aware of what's coming down the pipe. So if there's new features, technical changes, understand them so you know what happens. For instance, if you're moving pre 9.1, what happens to user overrides? How do they merge? Now they're UDOs, user defined objects. So how do they work? What tables do they hit? How do I support this when this comes down? Backups, key backups, point in time, snapshots, or whatever you do during that upgrade process is key. So finding the right time to do it, because you don't want to redo anything just because your ESUs failed in between and corrupted something. You want to be able to make sure that you have point-in-time backups that you can restore. Reviewing all the PDFs during the upgrades, they fly. They are flying along and they all look fine. And some of them don't even say failed. It's not like the system stops and says, this didn't work. You actually have to review even some of the data dictionary upgrade processes that go through. They won't say anything. Some of them don't say anything. And so you actually have to review and make sure that should this be 500 pages and it's only one page. So all of those things are important. Testing on the PD servers. So when you're in your PY environment and the team is doing their integration testing, are they on the DVPY servers that are going to be in the future, or are they actually the PD servers that you're going live on? That's what you want. So that's a critical thing. DB users, make sure, because the 9.2 side creates the new schemas or the databases. So you want to make sure before you run that upgrade process that they have the proper rights to the database to be able to do what it needs to do. And data integrity. So if you have a data integrity issue in 9.1 and you upgrade, the upgrade doesn't fix that. So if there's problems with your data for whatever reason it may be, maybe it is a UBE that kept messing things up and it's fixed in 9.2, but you still have that data issue, that needs to be resolved before you do an upgrade to stop the confusion. Scheduler server controls, make sure you understand your scheduler server on 9.1 versus 9.2 and make sure it's controlled on go live weekend, that you stop it in 9.1 so that it doesn't update the business data control tables on the old side. CNC cleanup and decommissioning old servers, those are both kind of hand in hand. After everything has happened, clean everything up, because you want to make sure that if there is a process still looking to the old databases or old servers, you want to know about it, you want it to fail, you want to decommission everything and make sure that it's a clean cut straight over to 9.2. Pain points, a lot of different things that we've come across is having the resources on the application side, no matter what you do, if it's a tools release or an application upgrade, if the critical business processes are not tested properly, you're going to have problems and you're going to see them in production. So having the confidence that that team is testing things properly, and when they stamp their approval on that, it truly is working, you need that. Communicating CNC process flows. So what's happening to user-defined codes come go live weekend? Where are they coming from? What's happening with central objects for production? Where are they coming from? We as a CNC team have to communicate that to the power users so they fully understand when they get handed that PD environment to support where everything came from, how that environment was built. That's a key thing. Development team planning. When you upgrade to 9.2, you have to decide if there's development going on the 9.1 side, you have to decide, okay, are we going to stop and have them come over to 9.2 and continue on that way? Or are we going to continue on with 9.1 development, move it up to production, and then par it up, bring it down after? All that has to be planned. And knowing your release from and to, that's critical. I touched on that before. It depends on the impact that we make on the system when you're coming from. Media objects, know how users are attaching them. Are they linking them? Are they attaching them? How are they using them? And plan for how you want to attack media objects for your upgrade. Do you want them to be merge them into the database instead? You have that option. So plan for that. Dry run of PD go live. Do you want to do it? And if you do it, make sure you plan to reset all the flags back so that the system doesn't know that you ran this already, because it will just bypass a bunch of processes because it thinks it already did it. We touched on Java versions before. Huge thing to understand what Java versions work with your tool set, with your application release, and keeping them consistent as much as you can across all servers, and the location of installation. don't install them at the regular default location. You're going to have problems. And page settings, correlation settings, because 9.2 creates new schemas, new databases. You want to make sure that the new settings or the old settings are matching the new for the ones that you import in from the 9.1 side. Vocab overrides and alternate language, plan for those because they'll be wiped out during an application release, no doubt. Perhaps if there's a conflict. So make sure you plan for the resources to be able to retrofit those changes that you've made because the alternate language, a lot of times there's the customization pieces to make it, to localize it for your region as well. So that's what I have. I hope that it was helpful to understand those process flows and the differences between the tools upgrade versus an application release. So I'll pass it back to you, Alana.
Thank you very much, Michelle. So no other questions have come in right now, but we still have a couple minutes left on the webinar. So if you do have any additional questions, please feel free to send them on. I'll just remind you guys that we are recording today's session and a link will be sent out. So if you do need to review it again and you have additional questions after rewatching the webinar recording, no problem. You can send our way. So I think we're good, Michelle, to carry on to the next slide for now.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
No worries. Thank you so much for presenting all that. That was very good.
No problem. No problem.
So before we end the webinar, I just wanted to give a little insight as to who ISP3 is and how we can help. So for those of you who don't know, we are an Oracle Platinum partner specializing in JD Edwards, Oracle Cloud, and Oracle NetSuite. For the past 18 years, we've offered end-to-end solutions and business partnerships across North America, and our expertise covers implementations, upgrades, and migrations, and just overall making sure that you are getting the most out of your software. And just like Michelle mentioned earlier, we're an Oracle customer, just like you. We've been on the cloud since 2016, and actually we were the first customer to migrate from JD Edwards on-prem to Oracle's first generation public cloud. And then earlier this year, most recently, we've migrated from the first generation to OCI and hosted a webinar on that. So if you would like a link to that recording, I can easily provide it so you can learn a bit more about making that next step once you're all caught up going to the cloud, because it looks like that is the future of this is the cloud. All right, so we're good to go to the next slide, Michelle. Thank you. So this concludes the webinar for today. And apologies again for the technical difficulties. If you are interested in additional information on today's topic or ISP3 services overall, please feel free to reach out to our VP of Sales, Leo Pyman. His contact information is there on the screen. You can also reach out to Leo if you'd like a copy of today's slides, which we'd be happy to provide for you. And we really appreciate you guys taking the time to join us. We hope that the webinar was informative and that you're leaving with some insights that you might not have thought about before. So just for fun, just in your little chat bubble, in the ultimate upgrade fight, what do you think would win? Would it be a tools upgrade or an application upgrade? Just for fun. Throw your answers in the chat window. And other than that, Michelle, thank you so much. Is there anything further that you wanted to add on at the end here?
No, I think I've talked enough.
All right. So far we've got tools. So far in the fight, tools is winning.
Awesome.
so go tools, release upgrades.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, thank you guys again for joining us, and we hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.